Let's
Yeah.
just all say hello real quick. Jeannie only has an hour today, so I want to make sure she has all
Yeah.
the time she needs. So let's just all say hello and where we're calling from.
Hi, everyone.
And someone's oh, that's Eric behind Jeannie.
Yeah. Sorry.
So
Now I'm
Stephanie
going to,
here at
yeah, I'm going to, okay. First, quickly, I'm going to share with you all in the chat some different things.
okay.
And I put my email in there. So after this, please, you can email me, ask me questions. We can get deeper into things, even off this topic, because I'm a super deep in it podcaster too. So
Perfect.
sorry.
And are you okay with this being recorded? As the other question. Usually with
Yes.
the okay technical ones, it's pretty straightforward. So okay. So hello from Ames. This is Stephanie Schubert, operations coordinator for Pacifica. I'm gonna pass it over to Joseph. He's next door to me with his fish.
Yep. I'm being fishing. Joseph Orozco from Hoopa, California, KIDE, Hoopa Tribal Radio. I'm the lead producer here. I'll pass it on to Marcus.
Hey, I'm Marcus. I'm the general manager here at KURU in Silver City, New Mexico.
Oh, awesome. Where is that in relation to Santa Fe?
So the complete opposite end of the state. We're kind of like at the
Okay.
bottom, about like an hour from the border.
Oh,
So
gotcha. Okay.
very barren southwest. Yep.
Mm.
And off to Davine.
Hey, I'm Davine Dial in Asheville, North Carolina.
Ah.
Okay, and then that leaves Bruce.
Yeah,
Oh,
hi.
yeah, Bruce. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Bruce.
No, it's okay. I'm Bruce. I'm on the WBAI cab and trying to promote the station. And I'm a big fan of Laura Flanders.
Oh,
Right,
awesome.
that's right. Yeah, so Jeannie is a producer for Laura Flanders show, and she's also a former programmer for WBAI and an accomplished DJ is what I'm told, which now makes sense.
Yes.
Your email is DJ Jeannie, so I hope I
Yes.
get to hear about that sometime. Um, so with that, I'll turn it over to you to talk about the Headliner app. Thank you, Jeannie.
Yeah. So I've been producing Laura's show. And also my duties in the beginning were how to get more presence on social media. And something very unique came about and was in beta testing around the same time. This was about this point 3 years ago. And is everyone familiar with the Laura Flanders show? Now, is it Davni? Davni? I believe
Davine,
that
Davine.
Davine, thank you. I believe that the show was airing in Asheville for a while, but I'm not sure if it still is. And is everyone familiar with the Laura Flanders show? Marcus, Joseph? Okay. So it's a 28-minute show. It's really covering movements and new solutions to exploring new solutions to problems, especially economic, in our economic landscape, and then spotlighting them, and some of them then are growing and the possibility of them moving to a greater scale, right? To scale up. One example of that would be like a public bank. You know, North Dakota has it. San Francisco's been talking about it. New York has been talking about it now for 2 years because it would allow the interest to come back into the community for infrastructure and things like that. So that's one example. The other is we're doing a lot of work on, you know, what's led up to the the January 6th insurrection, which is which you'll hear in this week's show about, you know, what is going on with democracy, right? Democracy versus authoritarianism, the two battling it out and those mindsets. But what are real people? talking about, right? On the ground, what makes them uncomfortable, what makes them, so that's kind of what the show is about. And Laura is a very seasoned journalist that I go back with at WBAI to the late 80s. So
Do you have a question, Bruce?
Yeah, didn't she cover the Mylan pharmaceutical firm that was moving to India?
yeah, more about Morgantown, West Virginia.
Right. So I mean that's a really important story that didn't get
Yeah.
any coverage. And I think the fact that you guys covered it was responsible for Amy Goodman putting it on Democracy Now! Because she picked it up like a day or two later.
Correct. And she pulled some footage from the show to use on that episode. So for people that may not know, Morgantown had one of the last and very large scale generic pharmaceutical companies, manufacturing companies, or if you call it manufacturing when it comes to drugs. But we're talking about over 5,000 jobs. Suddenly that's going to be lost because they figured there's not as much of a profit here. We need to move it overseas. And in this critical moment to make that kind of decision, from jobs to also COVID and access to manufacturing on our own soil, supply, demand is crucial. And also Joe Manchin, who's Democrat and progressive, quote unquote, that's his state. So it brought a lot of pressure on. We don't know the results of it yet. But yeah, that was a big story. Thank you, Bruce, for bringing that up.
It's actually a much dirtier story than that.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
Manchin's daughter was the CEO of the company, bailed out with mega millions of dollars.
She was, yes.
The pharmaceutical company that in India that they're supposedly moving it to has failed all of the inspections. So I mean, if you really, there was some kind of Vice or Esquire article on it, and it's really a shit show, pardon my French, but
correct. I mean, it's messy. And but I encourage you to download the show on an audio port and take a listen. You can also watch the show. The Laura Flanders show originates as a TV show, and then I produce it for the ear. But I produce a lot of her uncut interviews. So if you ever want additional content, I do recommend subscribing to the podcast or just going to the site and check in our audio exclusive section. And you may want to use some of the longer uncut discussions. They're usually no longer than 40 minutes, 30 minutes on average. But like Winona LaDuke we have in there, and others currently. So what I want to get into with all of you, though, now that you are familiar with, hopefully, the Laura Flanders show. Yes, Marcus? But definitely download it, check it out, or just go to the site, lauraflanders.org, and I will put that in the chat. The difference from the podcast to the actual radio show is that there are calls to action and there are calls for requesting that our podcast subscribers contribute. It's a 501c3, so we have just as much strain and stress, but on a TV/radio scale versus your, 50, 60 or more programs that you guys have on your plate to, produce, if you can even get up to that. It's a lot of work, as you know, fundraising. But we encourage you to use those uncuts. You can use them for membership drives, and Laura is available. You can reach out to me if you want her to help you do any sort of fundraising. She's very good at getting on live with another host. So we offer that to you too, or just doing pre-records, which we've done. Or if you need a drop or a promo for the show. Okay, so that's my Laura Flanders part, because now we're going to dig into what I had found and discovered, which was this awesome thing called Headliner. And I don't know if you want to give me control of the screen.
You should have control. It should be set up.
Okay, so where do I do this again?
At the bottom, there's a share screen button.
Gotcha. I haven't been on Zoom in a little bit. In apps? Oh, share screen, the big giant green bright button. Okay. So we're going to share this. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to Headliner. It's a weird extension. It's headliner.app. This is free. You can create a login and it is free. Get this open. Close some of this other stuff we were up to today. Okay. So what is Headliner? I'm going to show you an example, and you may have seen these already around in social media and wondered, huh, that's cool. How can I create that without having a huge art department, right? So this is an example for Laura Flanders. It's a very simple background because we are a TV show. A lot of the shots and things from the show we hope mentally delineate the TV show from the radio show. So we don't use a lot of the same visuals, and we've created this format. Now in this format, you see the logo. You see the name of the guest. You see this wave, right? I'll hit play.
So is that giving you sound as well?
Yeah, so I'm going to show you all in Headliner how to actually make this. Now, what you see here is this is 51 seconds. Actually, it's really, I think it's a minute that we use. Yeah, it's a minute. So you want to find that awesome soundbite, right? You could use it just in general for a show, where you could have a generic one just promoting like your morning show or promoting with a little promo that you've already recorded. And so you can use an MP3, a wave, whatever the format. But, you know, our rule of thumb, as you know, in radio is to use the highest resolution. This image, we actually create the thumbnail separate. We follow the protocols of what they suggest here. And we do it in advance, but you don't have to. So this version is called an audiogram. They call it the audiogram. You could actually even map out a whole episode. And you saw also the transcript going. That's a feature also within Headliner. Except the only weird thing is if it's a little long, your soundbite, it gets off a little bit. If you decide to use more robust Headliner features where you can actually, it's crazy. It's like you can create a movie in here. You could put images in that pertain to that soundbite. Another line, you can add the transcript. Then there's another strip. So technically it's another channel, right? So if you have a multi-channel audio program, this in this case, you can actually do 2 video channels and 2 text channels. So it starts to get your brain going, like what you can do with this tool without having to be somebody that knows a big video editing program or somebody who knows even Photoshop or Adobe or what's the latest that Adobe has for motion graphics, I forget. So let me see here, podcasts, we don't want to do that, hold on. Turn audio clips, okay. So I'm gonna go, this says podcast, right? So weirdly, I've never used this feature. Search for podcast name, enter an RSS feed, paste in a description link. I haven't used that. I just go to this one, which is upload, right? We all have our own audio. We're radio people. So I'm going to choose a file. I have Laura's latest F word, which is nice and short. Oh, here, okay. From this last week's show, right? Technically, it's longer than what I would want to use, but we're just gonna go through this. This is what's cool though, right here, I could be like, it's kind of long. And I could say, I don't want all that at the top, right? So I could be like, let's cut that down. So just like any DAW, right? Any digital audio workstation. So let's say we just want that soundbite, right? I can do the same thing, just holding, I'm just clicking down, holding and dragging it over. Now I want to play. Oh, that's interesting now. It just it doesn't realign. I always forget where you can move something around. Okay, so I've got right now, this clip starts at 37, ends at 52. The duration is 15 seconds. Now I have my clip. And this is great too. This gives you a little heads up. I don't know how many of you are familiar. Instagram, your video is at a limit of 1 minute. Twitter, 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Facebook, 10 minutes. Stories, Snapchat, or just says select full clip, right? It's great because then you don't have to keep thinking about, oh, now I got to trim and now I've got to, so it's nice that that's built in because ultimately you're using it for social media that way. Now the next section is artwork. And the square, it gives you another thing. Best for Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, right? This one, landscape, is great for YouTube, websites. I find also that it's good for Facebook as well. Portrait, again, this is great for Instagram stories because they do narrow things. TikTok, all those platforms. So I say yes. Oh, wait, what happened? It's changed a bit since, oh, here we go. So I want to get an image in here, right? That's interesting. They used to have it automatically set up to connect to some photo archives that were Creative Commons that you could draw in, but we can get into that in a little bit. So in here, this is the square that we did create, the thumbnail, I call it, that will go with this audio. What's cool is, let's say you just had one image, you don't have any fancy like lettering already in it, but you found a good image. It's even like a good thing to do is if it's a show, a headshot of somebody, and there's some fun tools too. How many of you actually use Instagram? Maybe do a thumbs up if yes. Anyone? No thumbs up, really? Oh, Bruce, okay. Okay, so, all right, so I won't go too deep into that, but, all right, so let's just continue with this and we can get into, oh yeah, I'll talk to you a little bit about ways you can all use Instagram to actually create a picture. Because if you set up like on your phone, because it's all about really the app on your phone for Instagram. Anything that you lay out with their cool little layout features on Instagram, you can set it up so that it downloads to you every time you do a post. And then the cool thing is it downloads to your phone, and you've had the advantage of all those layout tools and creating an image in there, and then you can use it for something like this. And all your efforts then can be molded into sharing it, to the other platforms. But I'll show you how to use that tool. So here it says you can crop the image. There's an autofill, but in autofill, sometimes it will stretch things funny. Some people don't like their faces stretched wide or up, but just bear that in mind. So now I've got my image. Oh, here, this is a cool tool. You can blur. So let's say it was a background of a mountain. You can kind of blur it so that the waveform stands out more, and I think this might be a tool that our artist is using by blurring a little bit of that kind of bricky background that you saw in the Laura Flanders one. You can replace, you can delete, you can crop. So now I'm happy with this, right? And I'm going to go to, what's the next step? I haven't been on the new one. This is kind of new. Where is this? Sorry. The screen's a little small. Oh, it's not letting me move along. So here's where, I'm not sure how I got to that. Sorry, the layout is different from the last time I was on this site. They've improved it. They're constantly improving. The cool thing is you can really send them messages and they will respond to you. So let's say you did a lot of work and you're like, oh my God, my computer froze or it's not working. I've had them recover like a 7-minute piece that I had done that was very complex. And they were happy to learn also on the back end how to make their platform more robust from it. So these guys are actual physical guys in New York City, and I'm probably working from home now, but they're not off in some seemingly remote, unreachable tech support world. Okay, so here we are at this point. This is now about customizing. And there are templates in here that you can use, which is awesome. So you could use these templates and then you can customize from these, including adding your own text and choosing your own waveform. So, and what's nice is I can go back to, my previous step and I'm like, no, I think I want to go with my image that I created. And then you can choose your waveform. All kinds of crazy waveforms. You can also, I think, change the resolution on them so they're not so dark. You could have this dot. We use the line a lot. You could use the pixels. I find the ones that look more traditional, like waveforms, work better. That's why we tend to do this. And you can make them smaller. You can just drag and drop and hold. I'm just with my mouse, just dragging and dropping and moving it. Like, let's say I'd rather have it here. And there's somewhere you can change the color. You can save it for later and go back to it. It will save in your work. It creates a workstation area for you within the app. So let's say you weren't finished. You could save it there before downloading it and go back to it. So let's see. Let's go back to this one. Now I'm trying to figure out, I know you can change colors. Save this waveform. For some reason, I'm not getting to the bottom of this screen. It's being a bit weird. Okay, so so this is the lo-fi one, hi-fi. So if you're, strapped for bandwidth, you can do a lower resolution. Oh, here we go. This is the one that I'm sorry, they've really changed it. I just rolled into town and jumped into this workshop for you today without going through this. I haven't been on this in a while. You can do middle, bottom. Padded means a little smaller. Fill fills the whole space. But again, you can squeeze them too. Move it around. Save this waveform for later. I'm not sure what that means. Oh, so you can create your own presets, like if you wanted to work from this in the future. Okay. Now where's the save? Where did they move that? Just don't know what happened. Usually it's like really obvious when you're done. Oh, here's the color part. Okay. So in the middle, because it was just white, the waveform's white, you can change the colors. So like red might stand out better here, or a gray, or a black on gray. Let's just do red. All right. It's y'all are noodling around, can noodle around with me. Okay. Just don't know what happened to the save button. Usually it's really obvious. Okay. Oh, here we go. So now create. What does that mean? Let's see here. Oh, the background, I could change a color. Oh, here's the text. So I could create a box and be like, add to video. Simple tools like you would find in any Word program. Center, put it to the left. Squeeze it. Your font size. Your font itself. I do recommend choosing a font and being consistent with it. That might not exist in my world. Let me see here. That font. I'm not sure why this is being finicky. Let's make it 18. Let's do it center. I don't know why it's jamming up here. Undo does not work in this program. All right, I haven't messed around enough with the text stuff. So we'll just call it test. And just say add to video. Oh, okay, I get it. So they want you to type it first, and then you can say add to video. All right, I'm not so great with this part. Oh, there it is. Okay. I think I was overdoing it. Oh, it was there. Okay. Oops. We don't want to add another layer. Anyways, you can add layers of text. So I could even put my station call letters here, right? Which would be really cool. Oops. Just wants to keep making new ones. Edit text. Okay. I don't know why this isn't lining up correctly in the box. But your commands work. So let's say I put in KHOI Saturdays 7 p.m. right? I think I know what's going on. Is that spacing? Anyway, somewhere in here, there's some spacing going on that I'm not sure about. I can change the color of the text. I guess you have to highlight it first. Make it red. Okay, and then I hit save. So that, unfortunately, that's a little wonky. And I'm not even sure where that just went. I apologize for that one, but you can add text.
I think you might have to highlight the text before you click an action. So it's only going to act on, see how the red only acted on the last character?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So I did all. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you, Bruce. But I'm not sure. Oh, and then it says add text. I'm sorry. That's the whole thing. Wait. All right. I'm just tripping myself out here. But what's weird to me is I did this text box, but I'm not sure why it's not showing up on here. So I could, let's say I deleted that text box. Oh, you know what? I think it's because I didn't hit save. All right, I'm not sure about that, and I apologize. But you can add text. I just got to get more fluid in what to do with that. Okay. All right. Sorry, I would have done a dry run and gotten familiar with their new layout before I came to you all. Let's see if it downloads. No, did not. Wow, they really changed this a lot, so I apologize. In terms of how I can download this now. Okay. I just hit escape out of that, out of those options. And let's say I mean, like I said, you can change the background when you're in here. I could change the image. I'm not sure what progress is. Oh, that's if there was video going on. So now you see here, it's still holding the same file name that I had created, that I originally had pulled the audio file in. So it used that same audio files file name. And then you hit create. Oh, so when it's free, your work is unwatermarked. The watermark idea is like somebody that's an artist or a creator that, doesn't want somebody to use their work again, and then they can, they've got a watermark in it that's unique to them, which is kind of almost like a little, well, you guys know watermarking, right? You can embed it in coding in an audio file. You can in a picture. A lot of photo libraries will do that. Then they'll send bots out into the world and see if anybody's using their work without their permission. And then they send them an invoice or ask them for a takedown if they don't want to pay the couple dollars. So you can watermark your work if you want to. So there's an advanced audio editor, or I could just export now. Now, what's in the advanced? Edit captions, add transitions, multiple tracks, watermarks, and much more, right? So I'm going to go in here. What it's doing now is it's actually pulling everything I just did together into a final product. Okay, so it's not final yet because in here, this is where I was talking to you about the multi-tracks. So because I'm interested in adding a transcript, okay, here's transcript, right? Your transcript from your radio audio file will appear here. So if I hit play, that weird. So I wonder if it's just. Before it used to say, somewhere in here, it will generate a transcript for you. But I've found if it's a very short thing, like this soundbite, you're almost better off typing it yourself and then importing it. And you can also, add that text in right here. Oh, that's interesting.
How good is the transcript?
It creates some funny translations of what it thinks you're saying. So that's why I found if you're doing a short soundbite, it's better to type it out first and import it in because it is a little wonky.
You can go back and edit the transcript?
Yeah, I'm saying it's better for you to type it first when you listen to your soundbite and then import it.
Okay.
So it says existing captions, so I feel like it's already there. Again, I apologize. I haven't gotten into the nitty-gritty of this new layout. But I will show you that down here, you can even add another audio track. Like let's say you wanted to do an ethereal music bed. You can actually add that here, import that. And then here's your audio, your soundbite. I'm not sure what this is with media. It's a certain color, but I think you can actually add a picture. Yeah. So on this is what I mean by a multi-track that you have an option to use. Again, I could upload something. This is where the library comes in. So let's say I wanted an image and I'm like, I want something from Google. do I want it from Pixabay? So let's say I said prison. So it's going to give me a library, and I can actually add these. So let's say I wanted to add this.
And these are copyright free.
These are, yeah, they're Creative Commons. So let's say I wanted to kind of add this to the center instead. But this is where it gets intense, and I like just the stagnant image because you can have a start point, an end point. It doesn't have to be the full length of the soundbite that this shows. You can have an effect. Is it going to pan from the right, the left, pan up, pan down, rotating cube? What's the transition? It's going to fade in. Image crop, adjust crop. You can blur it a little bit. Duration, 5 seconds. So let's say we added this to the video. Hold on, Bruce.
This would be their way of doing a slideshow.
Yeah, you can add a couple of images to it. So let's say I hit. Oh, that's the cube. Cool. I haven't seen the cube before. That's a new feature. It's kind of cool. But I can go back to that cube. And I can be like, I want it to show longer, right? You can extend that image. You can shorten it, if I'm not mistaken. I can add more images. But I don't want to overwhelm you because it's really I highly recommend before you want to actually have the mission of I've got to create something immediately because we got to promote this. Having fun with all the features. There's no mistakes. There's no, you can have a lot of fun with all this stuff. But let's say I'm done and I'm like, no, I like it like this. Although with that weird text that I thought I erased is there. So I could probably go back and do a redo. This, like I said, this can get very intricate when you start getting into these. I'm going to show you an example of some that I have created. Oops. So that's an example of using the transcript, having an audio wave. We have it very small here, but it, and it could just be that you choose a solid background. You have the person's name, you type in a little text in the corner to brand your station. Now I'm going to show you one of these. This is one.
I have a question, Jeannie.
Yeah, so quickly, I want to show this video here is literally done with this more extensive layout of adding images and sound using wipes and effects. So I did want to show you that. So let's say I'm done here. You hit export. I know we only have 10 minutes, but you would hit export. You can choose your quality because, bandwidth can be taxing. Email when the video is ready. Intro clip. If you have a generic intro that you use all the time, you can add an intro and outro clip. And then export speed normal, you know, and then I would literally just export it. And it spends time saving it. And if it's a very intricate one, sometimes it'll take longer. So it'll send you an email when it's ready and let you know. And then it gives you a download link in that email as soon as it's ready. So I know this is like a really crappy layout, but I was happy to show you, you know, what I have created. Like I said, this is very intricate, where I have wipes going from the side with this coming in. I have, you know, hey, this is where you can get the podcast. There's a waveform. This is an image, you know, Ai Weiwei, panning up, you know, you see the difference. This was a zooming and sideways, plus there's a transcript and there's an audio file. So this is probably one of the most intricate. And again, I apologize that I am not as well versed in this new layout, but I will see here. It says your video is ready, or it'll send me this. So I don't have to sit there and wait on the site, and then I can go to video and download. So that's that. So yeah, so any questions, because I know we only have like 8 minutes left. Let me get rid of the screen share. I don't know how to get rid of the screen share. Hold on.
Is it at the top?
Do you want to get, yeah. In view?
I think there should be a green button, a green.
Oh, here it is. Stop sharing. Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. So number one, create a free account in Headliner. Number two, get your soundbite ready, or you can import something that might be a few minutes long and you can zoom in on it. So you don't have to, you know, you could give something to somebody that was rough, or you could even give them, but obviously the longer the file, the more time it's going to take to import. And you can create, I suggest using the templates first and customizing off of those templates just to mess around, especially if you don't have an art department or you're not super well versed in laying something out. The thing I was saying about Instagram is, you know, if you create something for Instagram and you choose that you're going to post it in stories, there's a lot of tools that you can change. You know, you can change a video. You can make a cool little short video, but I think that would be for another workshop. But if you are familiar with Instagram and you've used stories, the top of the frame when you're making your story, and a story, the only difference between a post and a story is a story will only last for 24 hours. But you do have the option also to save it as a highlight in your Instagram account, so you can build up topically those stories into one highlight named. So let's say I have the morning show. I could, within that 24 hours, quickly save it as a highlight into that particular folder called morning show. And it's cool because then somebody can go through the history and look at all the stories, which is really an image. And then you can manipulate the image with the toolbar on the top. You can even save it or just download it without even posting it if you're like, oh, I just want to use it for something else. But there's some insane effects and fun things you can do. I don't suggest doing a lot. Choose 2 or 3 that you really dig, be consistent, and create kind of that brand and that style for that show and stick to it. And if you feel good about it, then, you know, maybe 6 months down the line or annually, you tweak it a little bit. But then it becomes memorable for people.
Question. Do you feel like you get more interaction with these little mini sound bites than if you would if you posted like a whole SoundCloud clip of the whole show?
Well, the advantage of a short clip like this is as soon as I go to Twitter, right? It starts playing as soon as I roll over it.
Okay.
The other way is you're really creating a link, right, to go to that to listen to, especially considering the limitations of, was it 2 minutes, 20 seconds, I think on Twitter, or maybe that was, I think a minute on Instagram. People's attention spans, honestly, the better you get at making it shorter, the better results you have, to be honest with you. People's attention spans aren't even the length of a radio song cut. 3 minutes, right? Most people spend time on a site or a piece of audio or video. If you have them averaging over 2 minutes, you're doing great. It's not like radio where I'm going to turn this radio on, it's going to be playing in the background and it's awesome, right? Online to me is about very, pardon if I don't mean to call in, went out on this, but if you're very ADD, that to me is kind of more web culture. So you want to get them, you want to wow them, you want to just, and that's why creating one format and not getting too crazy with the bazillions of choices that are in there. That's why we created those very simple blocks. And they really stand out. A block of a certain font, choose your font. A certain waveform, choose that waveform. A certain color scheme, 2 colors, 3 tops. If you're laying out entirely in that program, meaning like you're not bringing artwork in. And again, I would work from the templates because the templates are awesome because there's a lot. And if you go to Headliner yourself after you create an account, you're going to see a lot of examples of other people using it. I'm talking about huge media companies that are using it, as well as, you know, the indie audio amateur. But for me, it's so powerful because all of a sudden you have this Final Cut with like Photoshop, with Adobe Illustrator or InDesign. I mean, so much. But I feel like your text that you use in your posts, tagging is extremely important. Create a tag, a hashtag. Every time you put something up, have your person put up, and you can put that in that audiogram in a little text, you know, hashtag WXYZ, hashtag KLMN, you know, because that hashtag in text in the body of your actual that you type into the email, I'm sorry, the post along with that, it's cool because then you can look up that hashtag and see where it's gone. But that's simple, you know, and consistency if you're trying to get a temperature on how well a post is doing or not. How many of you, are you guys all on Twitter? Yes, put a thumbs up if you're on Twitter. Okay. How many of you are more, put a thumbs up if you're a Facebook, let the thumbs go down first. Oh yeah, keep the thumb up if you're a Facebook person. Okay. And how many of you, again, a thumbs up if you're an Instagram person? I highly recommend, honestly, with the Laura Flanders show, we only started getting into Instagram now a year and a half ago. And the downfall of Instagram is that, you know, you can't have hyperlinks because they want you to stay on their platform. They don't want you going anywhere. However, are you guys familiar with Linktree? Look up Linktree. What's cool with Linktree, you're allowed one link in your profile on Instagram. Bruce knows. You're allowed one link. Go to Linktree and you can put in multiple links. So you could put the station's link, which is really your primary, but let's say you had an event coming up and you create a couple cool headliners, right, for an event. Like, come to our record sale, come to our bazaar. You might have a different URL for that bazaar, so you can have your main link for your station, and then you could have that bazaar link. And you could add, and then you could have your Facebook link, you could have your Twitter link, you could have your SoundCloud link. That's what Linktree is about. So if you ever see in people's profiles on Instagram, Linktree something, you hit on that and take a look. You'll see everybody, they've gathered all their links. That's how they've gotten around that limitation. I will tell you, I teach at the Lower East Side Girls Club, very young girls that are tweens. So between the ages of 11 and 13, some are 10, some are 14. Their whole thing is Facebook is for old people. YouTube is where they hang out because everything's free. It's the thing that's most accessible to them. It's not something behind a paywall. And that's really where they're hanging out, listening to music and finding new programs and things. So one other thing you can do is, if, let's say you created your headliner, and let's say you did get into a little more robust, a little shot in the studio, a Zoom call like this, you did record. It's worth putting these videos up. These can be your videos in creating a YouTube channel as well, which is cool. Also, you can create a whole, as you saw, an entire podcast. They call podcast. We all know it's a radio show with an RSS feed. The differences between podcasts and you know, I'm not going to get into all of that. But it all originates out of radio, really, the art of audio.
Do you have time for one question, Jeannie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I see Marcus has a question.
And then Bruce, I have your question that I'll let you know a little bit about too.
Hey, yeah, so I was just curious, what are, as far as like social media integration goes, what's the most and like least compatible you've found? And also, is it on, or is it TikTok accessibility too?
You know, I'll be honest with you, I haven't jumped into TikTok too much, but TikTok's more, it's not about posts, it's about you creating your own video within the app. So it's funny, even with Laura and for me too, even with my whole music world, I'm like, oh, another app, another social media platform, right? I think you have to figure out, it can be very overwhelming trying to cover every platform. So I think you have to figure out which one really works for you. I do feel like Facebook is more interactive in the sense that you can type a lot. There's no limitation. A group page is a good thing on Facebook. That's probably the most robust thing going on, is their group pages and how they've been evolving that culture to create actually a closed culture so that somebody has to request to be a member. The good thing about that in Facebook is then you could even create these special sessions for those people if you want to do a Facebook Live event. And that you know that they're very specific subscribers that have requested to be in your group. So that's why I feel like Facebook is good. TikTok is about having fun in the studio. You know, do a funny little video, get it up there, have a little dialogue. I think that's your best bet with TikTok. And of course, there's Snapchat, but the idea of Snapchat is also a quick message, but it's sort of like stories, it'll disappear. There's a couple platforms, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, that you can upload, you can schedule your social media posts. It's called Hootsuite. Oops. So I just put it in the chat, Hootsuite. I think there's an E after Hoot. And it's cool. Get to know it first. You can add, I think, up to 3 or 4 platforms. And then you can actually bring in your media that you want to go with it, write your text there, and then you schedule when it will post to your social media thread. So that way you could do a general, you know, every day the morning show's on at 6 a.m. You know, so it could be like, hey, wake up with us, you know, and you could have a little headliner, and it could be even a funny, hey, wake up, you know, with the sun, a piece of, you know, image of a sunshine or something. And I'm like, so that's happening. And the host isn't sitting there like, oh my God, I'm on the mic and I'm engineering and now I have to post. But what a cool thing is to do though, is if you are doing a live show and it's not super tight, when the mics are off and you have a song playing, a couple songs or an audio piece that was pre-produced, that, you know, a segment that you're putting in, take a moment in the studio, turn your camera on, and I mean, do a live post. Say, hey, this is the background. We're in the studios and it's the morning show. Spread the word, save this, you know, hashtag us and da 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 da. It takes a while to get interactivity to build that up, but some people are good at it. You know, you're going to find some are better at it than others, but that's what I would do when Liquid Sound Lounge is a 3-hour show, music show. So I looked at Facebook and even Twitter as, more so Facebook, as people hanging out around the water cooler, right? So I'm like, hey, reminder, I'll go live. They'll see that post flowing. Live posts, by the way, live video, the algorithms reach further. So you'll get better reach with the live video. But make them short, make it like a tease. Hey, this is, you know, WXYZ and it's the morning show, you know, news is coming up and it's crazy out there, but we got good news too. I'm your host. This is our digs, you know, join us. And then whatever your tagline is for your station. But weirdly, the algorithms are really friendly and will reach more people if you do a live video. The less links, the shorter text in a Facebook post, the greater reach you're going to get. They don't like links. They do not like external links. They just start to squash you. So I hope that's helpful, Marcus. Yeah. Now, Bruce, you had one question, which can you ask her to compare the various apps that do something similar, like Headliner? Podbean and Stitcher, they don't. Simplecast has a feature. It's called Recast. And Simplecast is a podcast aggregator. So I find that radio stations can create their own aggregation, and there's of course Pacificaster that I'm helping to consult on, that we're working on, which is going to be amazing. I know you've heard a lot about it for a while, but it will be coming, but like anything, it takes a while because we want it to be really robust and do a lot of things that are really more about what's called a closed garden, I think that's what they call it. So it's really something that creates an ecosystem that is Pacifica, the Pacifica affiliate, the Pacifica network. So, but with Stitcher, I'm sorry, not with Stitcher, with Simplecast, which we use. The reason why I switched us from, what's the other big one? Libsyn to Simplecast was they have something called a recast. And it's sort of a down and dirty headliner that you can create. So my podcast is already uploaded, it's already there. I can also zoom in on a soundbite, but that it's set at 30 seconds, 1 minute, and I think that's it. So you have to really choose what section, and then you can import a picture that becomes the background, and then it has a frame and a simple waveform. We were doing that, but then we realized that we actually liked using Headliner better. But it was a very simple, easy thing. But that's the only one, Bruce, that I found that has something like that built into it. I haven't, in the last few months, really looked deep into what new features are in a lot of these platforms, these aggregator platforms, but that's the only one that I've found it in so far.
What's the workflow that you're using? Like, what's the workflow? You start with the video.
For me, it's because we are all audio editors, if we're radio, or if you have that skill, I like to edit my soundbite first. It's called getting my tools together, the parts together. So I like to do that first. And then our art person created a template that has the logo and has maybe a simple tagline that because I used to do all these. I have to build them now. Luckily, we have a couple people that are doing it. The staff grew a little bit, but once I have that background for myself ready, I like to pre-produce the image ahead of time. But I've also, as you saw, produced them entirely in Headliner as well. But the soundbite, to me, you can still import into that program and choose your start and end point, as you saw, easily by dragging and dropping. But that's it. Identifying the soundbite is number one.
But the initial audio is actually the video that she records for YouTube.
Oh, you want to know for the Laura Flanders show, how the process, the show goes. It originates as a TV show first. And then I work a lot on the audio for the TV show as well to get it to the best quality, especially it's been challenging during COVID because we're not in the studio. We were partnered with the CUNY Graduate Center and CUNY TV before the pandemic. So it would be a proper 3-camera shoot in a studio, everything. And then she has video editors. We all decide, we listen to those interviews, and then we all decide from there the strong points as a group after hearing the interview right now, because it's being done on Zoom. And then the editor, really the video editor, goes from our notes and has a lot of liberty to also choose the strong sound bites. And she works with, it's mainly Charlotte, who works with our creative director. And then we have someone who's a motion graphic person that creates, the visual for the start of the show and creates the style template that kind of matches that Headliner, matches so that there's, some style that guides it, that threads everything together. And then what happens is sometimes they'll send me the audio and I have to clean it up, but it's after they're done editing. And there's a program that's called, what's it called? Isotope. Isotope 8 is a really powerful audio cleanup tool. So you can get rid of ambiance, like HVAC sounds in the background, things like that. So, okay, thanks, Marcus. And after that, then I get the final cut. Sometimes I don't even get a final cut because I don't need to wait for all the visuals to get done. And then I'll take usually the V2 cut. Usually it ends up into 3 cuts with as the editors and the creative director decide on moving content around, or we really should get this part of the interview in and not that part. What background images we're going to be using and stock footage. And then from there, I do all the sound design for the radio shows because I actually produce music and sound imaging. So I use Ableton, which is kind of crazy because it's a very intricate program really for creating music and actually producing music live on the fly with live players. But I enjoy doing live real time, pulling in samples and creating actual sound imaging for certain sound beds, the little whooshes and swooshes you hear in the show, the sound that denotes, the end of the show, except for really the theme song and some of the, we do have a subscription to an audio library that we can pull in music, just like stock footage, there's stock audio. And yeah, and then I finish it up and upload it to AudioPort and get it out there. And then I create the podcast version too. I write the script. Laura does the initial intro script, but then I do all the other scripting, like at the break, at the close. And if you listen to the podcast, there's even some other scripting, which is a lot of the pitches to kind of, if we have an event coming up, if we have, a fundraiser going on. So that's what I do.
So the video edit, you're doing Final Cut Pro?
No, Audition.
Adobe Audition?
I use Audition. They use Premiere,
That's what I meant, yeah.
which is part of the Adobe suite.
Right.
Laura is, we all know, like, when you have to work with the technical and then be the creative person too, right? Even in a studio, it takes, for a radio studio, it takes a lot to engineer. It's almost like this side of the brain, and then you're doing the creative part of being the producer and the host, right? So that's this other side of the brain. So that's the big challenge for her right now is we do have the show highly produced in terms of what we want to get. And the questions are mapped out in advance. We start with a framing and what's really important, that the points we want to hit in that story, because the shorter something is, the more you have to produce it. 28 minutes, it goes very fast. So Laura literally has 2 cameras in front of her. They're high quality cameras. They're more like single, SLR cameras. And she was doing it on iPhones for a while during the pandemic. And then she has to deal with her audio right there. And so it's a lot that she has going on. And then we're in a Zoom call like this, where none of us, our faces are, it's just like all of you where you don't have your video on. So we're listening in on the conversation. I'm able to then in the chat specifically speak to the supervising producer, choose him who I'm chatting with, and tell him if there's an audio situation going on that I don't like. Like this one show, oh my God. It was like there was a leaf blower outside the woman's window, and then there was a lawnmower going. It was crazy. But I was able to isolate and get rid of most of that sound after the fact. But it's been challenging during the pandemic.
In the interview, she's using Skype or Zoom or?
We're using Zoom. We're using Zoom right now, but there's a lot of bells and whistles we go through to get the highest quality. So we have each of the guests, we give them permission to record on their end. And so we usually take the audio that's native to their computer, recording in their space, and tend to use that because then you don't hear the digital dropouts and things that would
Right.
happen.
Right.
However, sometimes we don't get it from the guest because, like anything, everybody has different technical abilities, and sometimes it's really overwhelming. And so we've had times that we'll just use the audio from the gallery view. And as a matter of fact, the show that just launched this week, yesterday, I just put it up. Laura had an issue with recording the audio in the studio with the good mic. So we actually, then it was decisions, let's use the gallery view. Because the audio is more consistent, because actually Zoom does process our audio a bit to smooth it out a little bit. I'll just put it that way. And so we just used the gallery view. But it changes for me. It's difficult because I'm trying to not have the audio be jarring when they listen to the radio because they don't have a visual to aid if it's a little rocky transition.
Right.
But
But
you-
if you have a high-speed internet connection, would you advise that, or just a regular?
Absolutely. If you're doing video, absolutely. But you know, I've gotten away with, I had for a while a 1 gig speed connection. I reduced that recently to half that and it's been fine. But for her, for camera, I think she's not on a gig, but she's close to it.
Right.
And honestly, the other thing too is that's her end, right? Because she's also natively recording right in her studio with the cameras and a microphone usually. Zoom, unfortunately, even though we have everybody recording at the highest quality, there is a little drift with the video to the audio. So it starts to feel a little more like a karate film where the lips are moving and the voice is coming, the sound's coming later. Yeah. So if you watch the show, you will see that. But the
And
show, right?
how do you assemble, you know, you've got 6 or 7 different well, maybe 10 different files at the end of the recording. How do you bring those files together so you can?
So we have a dedicated server in the little bit of office space that we have still. And that server, instead of, you know, paying for a server in the sky, you know, on Amazon or whatever, they're like, get your own. It's like renting storage, you know, you get your own server space. And that's where we all share. And we use an FTP program like CyberDuck. And it's highly organized. So Laura will upload her audio and video there. The editors that are gathering B-roll, there's a B-roll folder for that episode. She'll record a closing and then she'll put that up there, the video, but then I tend to grab the audio only and use that. And I don't use the audio that they've already embedded in the video. So there's a that server, and creating a good file naming and organizing structure is key.
Yeah, that was kind of my question. So like today's show, you'll have a directory that's September 9th and then all the little pieces go into it?
No, we don't even have a date. We have an episode number.
Oh, okay.
And then we have, and sometimes we don't even have the episode number. So we tend to choose a couple word title topically that relates to it. I think we do put the date of when it was shot, not necessarily the date when it's going to air.
Okay.
So it's a bit chronological.
Can I ask you a question about Isotope 8? We have a problem with, BAI does a lot of call-ins. I mean, they do a lot of call-ins, and the callers' audio quality is all over the map, from really good to really horrible.
Yeah.
And I was looking for a way that we could clean up that audio real time, maybe just like push the treble and drop out some of the noise.
I think what John Amella has set up for BAI, which is being used for remote, because you know the show was going remote from the different ops people's apartments.
Right.
But what they have set up is they have audio hijack and they have clean feed. So already BAI is using these tools. Telephones are very hard to clean up because unfortunately in the United States on these cell phones, they've compromised bandwidth on the vocal side of things. So they've just taken so much away so that we almost all sound like we're in tin cans, even worse than an old school landline.
Right.
And even the landlines now are going over VoIP, right?
Right.
So
Isotope 8 won't do that.
Isotope 8 will do that, but it won't do it in real time for you.
Oh, okay.
And it can clean up a little bit, but it takes a lot of finessing because it's hard to get this into sounding like this.
Right.
You know, it's just the reality. And I always tell people, you know, just embrace it. It's a phone. And that's an exciting thing with radio. It's very real time. And sometimes I don't think you have to, we're in a time that's called acceptable loss. People accept the loss of quality for speed and ease of use with the technology.
Mhm.
I mean, that was the whole conversation around, oh my God, a lossless music file versus one that's compressed, right? And you always want to start with the highest quality. And, but if you can't, like these days, it's even more challenging to get people into that mode because everything's now a streaming library instead of being able to download and actually own your own music, you know? So it's hard.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't looking for perfection, but sometimes the cell phone quality is so bad you can almost not understand what the guy's saying. So
Yeah, I'll tell you, there is this program. I mean, I've been watching the market, waiting for something, especially because of COVID now. It's a real issue and people are trying to find the best way. But if you really work with audio hijack well, which then you use clean feed as well. Clean feed is a program that you can have multiple guests come through. You send them a link. They literally hit the link and then they're live from their computer or from their phone, depending what they're using. And it does help. You can create an effects chain to clean it up. Meaning like you can say, hey, I want to use the parametric EQ and get rid of these, roll off the bass because that's not there anyways, and the human voice. And then I want to dip into this frequency that seems to be muddly, but it's more of a post. And you can do it live. That's what they've been using for live, and a lot of stations have been using during the pandemic. But you can also use it after the fact and clean it up.
Okay. Thank you.
But Isotope 8 is not that expensive. And there are some new programs, but they're not, they're really expensive. It's like $3,000, you know, starting at, to get rid of the anomalies that are happening with, you know, using Zoom or things like that that have dropouts, because really it's bandwidth challenge, you know, that compromises the sound. So.
Can you put the link for your show into the chat?
Oh, sure.
Well, I see we're coming up to 4:30, and I know time is precious for you, Jeannie, so
Yeah.
we'll wrap it up here.
Yeah, just any other questions, and then I can jump off. But like I said, I have my email in the chat. I just put my show in there, and then you know, Laura's show is in there now.
Cool, thank you.
Simplecast.com. That's what we use for our, you know, podcast aggregator. And of course, headliner.app.app. is where you're gonna find that tool.
What
Okay.
could we do to promote the Laura Flanders show?
Honestly, the best thing you can do if you like something is to literally interact with the posts on the show's social media platforms. The more interactivity of a post, the more the post will get legs and reach further.
Okay.
So it's always better, instead of you to like copy paste a link from something and create a whole new post, just share the post that exists to your thread or to other threads, and tag people that you want to also.
Yeah, somebody told me that the reach with Facebook is much greater if you're sharing the post as opposed to reposting it or copying it.
Exactly. It's better to share to your feed.
The other thing that we found with groups as opposed to pages is because it's a group, the people start talking to each other in the group, and it just kind of
Exactly.
grows like wildfire. And also you can see who's in the group and talk to them, whereas a page, there's a like, but that's it. You're not gonna.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. I think group pages and also having permissions so that you don't get spammed by some weird. It's happened before to me where, and that's what saved me. If you just have an open group and you don't have to approve the person being added. The other thing about approving and then also limiting the posting to be only the posts that are done by your administrator versus letting other people put a new post up is better also, because then people's interaction happens in your post, right, in the comments, as opposed to allowing them to just, because I used to get bombarded by everyone's parties, and they're like, oh, and they're just doing this mass share to this group, share to that group, my party's coming up. And I was like, you know what, this is one place that I just want it to be about Liquid Sound Lounge. And we will share other people's parties, but I have friends that they're promoters and they're promoting 6 parties. And the next thing I know, I go to my group page and there's 6 different posts, each a different event. And I know who it's coming from. And I'm like, hey guys, I'll share it. As opposed to you having free access and reign to post like crazy. They're just trying to hit their mark.
Do you know of a radio station or radio stations that are really nailing it with social media?
The biggest challenge is time. Everybody's already so strapped. I find that it's not necessarily the station, but it's usually a producer that has a certain finesse
Right.
within the station.
Yeah, we had the same situation. Some of them are great and some of them aren't even on social media, period.
Well, Bruce, when I was program director, it was something that I started to do was do some workshops. And even with someone like Sally O'Brien, she was just like, it's just so foreign to me. It's overwhelming to now learn a whole new platform. And so, it's just about, I think, having those workshops and just teaching people an easy way. That's why even with Headliner today, just use the format, already the templates they have there. Start there. Otherwise, it can be a real rabbit hole. And I think,
and if you have a producer that wants to just use Headliner, use a template, and here's the new audio, and just do the same thing, you can do that.
Any producer can use Headliner.
No, I don't mean it that way. I mean, once I get a very simple template together, I did this Wednesday's show. I don't have the time to play with Headliner. Next Wednesday, can I just say, here's the audio, do the same thing?
If you create a template and you save it in there, you can give somebody your account that they can then plug in a different image or whatever you want to add, a new title for that week's show or anything.
I meant, I have the audio from today's show throw it into Headliner, have it just do a standard vanilla process, and then next week's show, same thing. So I don't have to.
Yeah, except just add, the waveform,
Okay.
add a title.
Okay.
Just be consistent with, maybe it's that you're a red person, so your scheme is always going to be red and white.
Okay.
Just something that's kind of consistent and always branded. Like, definitely always have the name of your show. Like I said, turn the name of your show into a hashtag.
Right.
So that way, when you do a search for the hashtag in that social media platform, or even in Google, and any browser, or DuckDuckGo, it'll all come up where that hashtag is.
That was a great presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good to hear from you, Bruce.
Yeah, Jeannie, I just want to say thank you for your kindness and sharing with us today. I know I literally just asked you this yesterday. You were just stopping
Yeah.
by on your way to New York, so it means
we're
a
en
lot.
route.
It means a lot that you could share with us today. Thank you.
You're welcome. And again, my email is in there. Just think DJ Jeannie Hopper, double NIE,
Oh, the Lower East Side Girls Club, is that in New York?
Oh yeah, Avenue C and 8th Street.
Do
They
you
have
think-
a podcast. It's called, we were called WGRL, Where Girl Radio Lives.
Would you guys
That's what it
want to
stands
do
for.
something? Would you
It's
guys wanna
difficult.
do
We're
something for-
we're in COVID right now, so we can't do anything. The
No, but
girls.
do you want to do something and put it on WBAI?
I'm not at liberty. I just teach
Oh,
the class. Actually, Kelly Webb, who I brought to BAI, who does the Sweet Spot, she's the head of the lab, the sound lab over there, and who I teach the podcast course with, or I was teaching it with. I don't know what's going to happen once COVID's done. But right now, that whole workshop is on hold. But you can go to, I think it's wgrl.nyc. And you can see all the podcasts. I did used to offer some of them that made sense to Michael G, when he was running the morning show,
right.
but because they're all odd lengths, I'll be honest with you, some of them are just very simple. So I feel like there would have to be more of a producer to bring the elements together. Because
No,
it's
but
them
there's,
learning. It's them learning.
Yeah, but that's great. I mean, there's a lady, Johanna Fernandez, who does a new day in the morning.
Mhm.
And she'd probably love to have a short, segment.
Well,
from
if
them.
anything, I'll tell Kelly, it's DJ Baby K, who again does the Sweet Spot. I'll tell her about that. She's the one who is full-time there. Me, I was just an assistant.
Okay, great. Okay.
That we taught that together. Yeah.
Do you know
But
about,
first, take a listen to the shows.
okay.
Have her listen first. So to see if it really fits.
No, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's rough. I mean, we had this argument at Pacifica about whether it's supposed to be community radio or professional radio. And I'm of the
Yeah, I
opinion.
know. Right in the middle, like YouTube. It's
rough
about,
is fine. Rough
yeah.
is fine. And it's kids, and it's supposed to be community radio. They're part of the community.
no, and every time there was like a pregnant pause on the Liquid Sound Lounge show that seemed too long, it's like, oh my God, dead air. Everyone's afraid. I'm like, you know what? Now we'll find out who's really listening. Because it triggers you like, what, dead air? And it's like, hey, glad you're paying attention now. We're back. So, all right.
Okay.
Bruce, you can email me anytime, and I've had a lot going on with my family, so I haven't really been able to do the show as well at BAI. That was one of my reasons for departing, for whatever political stuff is flying around, which is always robust there. With my mom passing last year during COVID, and now my sister's on her final stages, which is why we've been tracking back and forth across the country during COVID to see her in Denver. But that's really the real reasons why I haven't been able to commit. But if I do, when I do come back, I'm going to take the show and probably put it on into audio port. So BAI wants to start re-airing if they can.
Do you know Women's Audio Mission in Los Angeles?
Yes, I'm
Oh,
familiar.
mm,
We've worked with them a bit with the Girls Club too.
yeah, that's a great initiative. Anyway,
And
thanks
there's
again.
also POC, I think it's POC Audio or POC Radio. I think it's POC Audio. Search that. And if you ever need to hire anybody in audio that's a person of color, it's a great platform to update and integrate, you know, your audio staff too, if you want to get more diverse.
Cool.
New York, we're lucky. We're very diverse. So
Thanks again.
yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jeannie. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This was interesting. I'm intrigued by this headliner thing, so I appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining.